So imagine you are sitting in this really high-stakes meeting.
Oh, the worst kind.
Right, the kind where your pulse is just slightly elevated, the room is dead quiet, and the entire senior leadership team is just staring at you.
Waiting for you to speak.
Exactly. They are waiting for your analysis on a project that is, frankly, currently bleeding money.
Right. No pressure at all.
No pressure. And you feel it, right? You want to sound authoritative. You want to sound in control, highly intelligent, like you know exactly what you're doing.
Of course you do.
So you reach into your mental dictionary and you pull out this massive $20 word. Let's say you call the team strategy anachronistic,
Oh, boy.
and you just drop it right in the middle of your sentence.
And instantly, I mean, you can just feel the temperature in the room drop.
You can, because you didn't sound smart.
Not at all. You sounded like you were wearing a costume.
Exactly. I love that. It's the linguistic equivalent of showing up to a Monday morning strategy meeting wearing like a top hat and monocle.
Right. It's entirely out of place.
And instead of listening to your ideas, everyone is suddenly just looking at your vocabulary.
Yeah. And your credibility just absolutely tanks right there.
It's gone because you're trying too hard.
It creates this sort of instant alienation. And the tragedy of it is you were probably just trying to be precise.
Right. You had good intentions. And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are looking at this huge stack of linguistic research that proves why trying to sound smart, doing the top hat routine, is actually the fastest way to ruin your authority.
It really is.
We are diving deep into a meticulously curated set of notes on advanced English. Specifically, we're looking at the vocabulary, the verbs, and the structural tools used at the absolute peak of language mastery.
Which is what linguists refer to as the C2 level.
Right, the C2 level. And before we go a single step further, okay, let's unpack this. We need to define that term.
Yeah, it's important to clarify.
Because C2 level sounds like, I don't know, a security clearance for a government bunker. What exactly does that mean for you, the listener, right now?
Well, it comes from the common European framework of reference for languages, but functionally, for you listening, C2 is the summit.
The peak.
It is the absolute peak of fluency. I mean, this isn't about knowing how to order coffee or, ask for directions to the train station.
Right, we're way past that.
C2 is the level where you can navigate a hostile corporate merger or decipher a really dense academic journal.
Or even understand the subtle sarcasm in a piece of classic literature, right, like natively.
Exactly. It is the level where you are no longer translating thoughts in your head. You are wielding language as a highly calibrated instrument.
And the central thesis of the research we have today, it completely dismantles how most people think about that high-level vocabulary.
It flips it on its head.
The research argues that true advanced vocabulary is never decorative. It is purely functional.
Which is a huge mindset shift.
Yeah. So if I can use a metaphor right out of the gate here, you are essentially stepping away from a paintbrush where you're just like splashing big words on a canvas to make it look colorful.
Right.
And instead, you are picking up a scalpel.
I love that analogy, a scalpel.
You use the exact right tool for the exact right tissue, and literally nothing else will do.
That functional mindset is the critical shift. If you treat complex words as ornaments just to impress people, you will fail.
You'll wear the monocle.
Exactly. But if you treat them as precision engineering tools designed to cut through ambiguity, you will completely command the room.
So, okay. How to get that scalpel? Because I'm looking at the notes here, and the sources keep hammering this one specific idea.
Which one?
They say that simply learning a dictionary definition is only like 20% of the work.
Yep, only 20%.
If I memorize the dictionary definition of a word like I know exactly what it means, what is the other 80% that I am apparently completely missing?
Well, the other 80% is understanding the ecosystem that the word lives in. The ecosystem.
Yeah. The research breaks this down into 4 foundational pillars. And the first 2 are fairly straightforward. It's context and collocation.
Okay, context I get.
Yeah.
Don't use a highly specific medical term in a financial meeting unless you're purposely using a metaphor.
Right, that's easy enough.
But what is collocation? Because honestly, it sounds like a real estate term, like co-locating an office.
It does sound like that. But linguistically, think of collocation like chemical bonds.
Chemical bonds, okay.
Yeah. Words are like elements. They very rarely exist in pure isolation. They naturally bind to other specific words to create stable molecules.
Oh, interesting.
For example, in English, we say we commit a crime.
Right.
We don't do a crime or make a crime, The words commit and crime are bonded together. They are a strong collocation.
Okay, I see.
So if you memorize this really high-level adjective, but you don't memorize the nouns it naturally binds to, you're going to create a highly unstable, very awkward sentence.
You'll sound like a translation app from like 10 years ago.
Yes. Like, it's technically correct based on the dictionary, but human beings just don't talk like that.
Precisely. And that brings us to the third pillar, which is honestly where most ambitious language learners completely crash and burn.
Oh, really? What is it?
Register.
Register. Okay. How do we visualize that?
Think of register as the suspension system on a car.
The suspension? Okay, I'm following.
So if you take a brilliantly engineered, multi-million-dollar Formula One race car and you drive it on a really rocky dirt road,
Yeah.
the car is going to shatter.
Right, it's going to bottom out immediately.
Exactly. The engineering isn't flawed, the machine is completely perfect, but the context is entirely wrong. The suspension just cannot handle the environment.
So the environment is the social setting.
Yes. Register is your linguistic suspension.
Hmm.
It is your ability to adjust your language to absorb the social friction of the room you are currently in.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
You have formal register, informal register, academic register, intimate register.
Right, you talk to your boss differently than your spouse.
Exactly. If you use a highly academic C2 level word to ask your partner to pass the salt at breakfast, the suspension breaks.
It's socially jarring.
Highly jarring. So the 80% of language mastery you asked about earlier, it's knowing the chemical bonds of the word and knowing exactly what kind of road that word was built to drive on.
I understand the theory of that. That makes perfect sense. But let me look at this fourth pillar, because this is where I start getting skeptical.
Okay, lay it on me.
The sources call the fourth pillar repeated retrieval.
Yes.
Now, I read that, and my brain immediately translates it to, like, staring at flashcards until my eyes bleed.
That's the common fear, yes.
Isn't repeated retrieval just a really sanitized academic term for rote memorization?
No, actually.
Because we hear constantly that you should learn language naturally, right? By just immersing yourself in it. Doesn't sitting in a room forcing yourself to retrieve words completely contradict that natural process?
I completely understand the resistance to that. But we really have to look at the neuroscience of how the brain actually encodes a memory.
Okay, hit me with the science.
Rote memorization. The flashcard method you're dreading is usually completely passive.
Right, you just stare at the card.
You look at the front of the card, you flip it over, you read the back. Ah, yes, apple means apple.
Yeah.
You are literally just reading.
Yeah.
Repeated retrieval is fundamentally mechanically different.
How so? Because if I'm trying to remember a complex word, aren't I just searching my mental flashcards anyway?
No, because retrieval requires a struggle. It is the active cognitive process of trying to pull a word out of the dark without looking at the answer.
Okay.
Let's say you are in a conversation or you are writing an email, and you know there is a specific razor-sharp word for the concept you want to express.
But you can't quite get it.
Exactly. You can feel it right on the tip of your tongue. Your brain has to work. It searches, it strains, it struggles.
And it's usually incredibly frustrating.
It is. But that exact friction, that struggle, is what thickens the myelin sheath around the neural pathway in your brain.
Wait, really? The physical struggle builds the pathway.
Yes. When you finally retrieve the word, or even if you have to go look it up after struggling for a full minute, the brain essentially says, oh, wow, this information is vital for survival. I had to spend a lot of metabolic energy looking for it.
So it keeps it closer next time.
Exactly. I better store it closer to the surface next time. Rote memorization is just painting a path on the grass. Repeated retrieval is paving a highway.
Okay, the neuroscience makes sense.
Hmm.
The struggle is the actual mechanism of learning.
Yes.
But practically speaking, how does that work for you, the listener, in real life?
Oh.
Because if I am in the middle of a live project update with the senior leadership team, I cannot pause for 30 seconds, close my eyes, and mentally struggle to retrieve the word anachronistic.
No, definitely not.
I'll look like I'm having a software crash.
You would, and you absolutely shouldn't pause.
Okay, so when do I do it?
In a high-stakes live environment, you use the vocabulary that is already fully baked. The words you have already mastered.
Right.
The retrieval practice happens in your low-stakes environments.
Yeah. Like drafting an email.
Exactly. It happens when you are drafting the email and you refuse to use the generic word. You take that extra 2 minutes to struggle and retrieve the precise one. Or it happens when you are reading an article, you see a specific structure, and you force yourself to recall its opposite. You build the highway offline so that when you are in the boardroom, the scalpel is instantly right there on the tray.
Okay, the struggle happens in the draft, not in the delivery. I buy that. That makes total sense.
It's all about preparation.
So we've established that relying on superficial definitions leaves us with blunt tools, right? And that we need to understand the chemical bonds, the social suspension, and the neural struggle of these words.
The 4 pillars.
Exactly. So let's actually put this into practice. If I'm in that boardroom or I'm writing a critical proposal, what is the absolute first linguistic tool I need to reach for to build an argument?
You have to start with the foundation of the action. You need verbs.
Verbs, not the fancy nouns.
No, verbs. Verbs are the engines of academic and professional discourse. And the sources provide a really specific cluster of high-level verbs to master for C2 level. They are argue, assert, contend, maintain, imply, demonstrate, and establish.
Okay, now let me stop you there, because if I open a thesaurus right now, it will probably tell me that half of those are just synonyms for each other.
It will. And it's lying to you.
Because if I'm writing a 10-page report, my instinct is just to rotate through argue, assert, and contend purely so I don't sound repetitive.
Right. Elegant variation.
Yeah. Are you telling me that if I swap assert for demonstrate purely for variety, I'm making an actual structural error?
You are potentially making a fatal error in your argument.
Wow. Fatal?
Yes. Treating these as interchangeable synonyms is exactly what the C2 mindset trains you out of. Every single one of these verbs carries a very specific weight of evidence, a distinct direction of force, and a totally unique legal or academic posture.
Okay, show me the difference. Let's take assert and demonstrate. Let's say I'm writing an email to the CEO. Our new marketing campaign is failing, and I need to stop it before we lose another $1 million.
High stakes.
Very high stakes. What happens if I write, I assert that this campaign is failing?
Okay, if you write, I assert, you are planting a flag in the ground.
Planting a flag.
The etymology of assert, it actually relates to putting your hand on a slave to claim them as property. It is a bold, physical claim of ownership over an idea.
Oh, wow.
So when you assert something to the CEO, you are stating it forcefully and with absolute confidence.
Okay, but that sounds like exactly what I want to do. I want to be confident.
Yes, but here is the critical psychological catch. An assertion inherently implies that you are making the claim prior to showing the undeniable proof.
Prior to the proof.
Yes. You are basically saying, listen to me, I am confident this is true. It relies entirely on your personal authority.
Ah.
So if the CEO does not already trust your authority, your assertion means absolutely nothing.
I see. I'm claiming it's true, but I haven't shown the math yet.
Exactly. You're saying, trust me. Now swap the verb. What if you write, the Q3 data demonstrates that this campaign is failing.
Demonstrates. Well, the Latin root there is related to monsters, right? Or showing things.
Demonstrate. To point out, to exhibit, to prove.
Right. So if the data demonstrates it, I'm no longer asking the CEO to trust my confidence.
Nope.
I'm telling them the proof is literally already sitting on the table.
You have entirely removed your ego from the equation.
Wow.
Verbs like demonstrate and establish carry the undeniable weight of objective proof. You do not assert with hard data. The data demonstrates.
Right.
A multi-year peer-reviewed study establishes if you use assert when you actually have the hard data, you are actively weakening your own argument.
Because I'm making it sound like an opinion when it is actually a fact.
Exactly.
That is an incredible distinction.
Yeah.
By rotating words just to sound varied, I could accidentally tell my boss, this is just my strong opinion, when I really meant to say, this is a mathematical certainty.
And that is exactly why vocabulary is a scalpel. You don't swap scalpels just because you're bored of holding the first one.
You swap them because you were cutting a different kind of tissue.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about contend versus maintain? If I am defending my budget for next year and another department is trying to take my funding, both of these verbs sound like I am fighting for my territory.
They are both fighting verbs, yes.
How do I choose between them?
You choose based on your posture, specifically whether you need to be offensive or defensive.
Okay, break that down.
To maintain is a defensive posture. Think of maintaining a fortress.
Holding the walls.
Right. It suggests holding a position over time, specifically against sustained opposition or pressure.
Okay.
So if you write, despite the revenue dip in August, I maintain that our Q4 projections are accurate, you are signaling resilience, you are absorbing a blow and standing your ground.
I am holding the line.
Exactly. To contend, however, is an offensive posture. Yeah, the root involves stretching out or striving. It's stepping into the ring. You contend a point when you are actively arguing it in a debate, often introducing a new competitive angle.
Okay, so give me an example of contending in that budget meeting.
You would say, the engineering department wants the budget, but I contend that without marketing, their product will never reach the consumer.
Ah, I see. I aren't just defending my budget anymore. I am striking at their premise.
You are. So if you, listening right now, are writing a performance review or defending your team's existence in a corporate restructuring, knowing whether to maintain your ground or contend for more space could literally save your job.
You are choreographing the psychological dynamics of the room before you even speak.
Precisely. And that choreography gets even more complex when we look at the verb imply.
Imply. Now, this one fascinates me because it feels like the complete opposite of asserting or contending.
It is.
It's not planting a flag or stepping into a ring. It feels like the art of the shadow.
The art of the shadow. I like that. It is the ultimate tool of cognitive direction.
Cognitive direction.
To imply is to fold a meaning into your words without directly stating it. The root of the word literally means to enfold or to entangle.
Wow, entangle.
You are planting a seed in the listener's head and forcing their brain to do the work of growing it.
Well, wait, I constantly see people mix up imply and infer. They use them like they're the exact same mechanism.
Which is a catastrophic error in precision.
Right.
A speaker implies. They fold the hidden meaning into the message. The listener infers. They extract the hidden meaning out of the message.
So if my boss says, we really need team players who are willing to go the extra mile this weekend, my boss is implying that I need to work on Saturday.
Yes.
And sitting there listening to him, I am inferring that if I don't work Saturday, I'm probably going to get fired.
Perfect example. The boss plants the seed, you harvest the anxiety.
Harvest the anxiety. That's exactly what that feels like.
But let's look at why imply is so dangerous and powerful in a professional setting. When you state something directly, when you assert it, you take full ownership of the claim. You can be challenged.
Right.
If you say, John is stealing from the company, you better have a lawyer ready.
Yeah, that's a direct accusation.
But if I say, it's interesting how John's reported expenses always spike when the accounting software is down for maintenance.
Oh, wow.
I haven't asserted anything legally actionable. I have merely stated a coincidence.
But you have implied theft so heavily that the listener's brain automatically makes the connection.
Exactly. And here is the psychological magic. Because the listener's brain had to do the work to connect the dots, the listener feels like they discovered the truth themselves.
Oh, that's sneaky.
An implied idea is often stickier than an asserted idea because the audience feels ownership over the conclusion.
That is incredibly manipulative.
Well, it is entirely neutral. It can be manipulative, sure, or it can be a highly polite way to save someone's face.
Oh, like a gentle letdown.
Exactly. If a client suggests a terrible idea, you don't assert that they are stupid.
Right, that would be bad business.
You imply that there are logistical hurdles that make the idea challenging, allowing them to infer that they should drop it without feeling insulted.
So the verb imply is the linguistic suspension absorbing the social friction.
Exactly, tying it back to the register pillar.
Okay, so the verbs are the skeleton of the argument. They are the structural beams that determine whether we are attacking, defending, proving, or planting seeds.
The bones.
Right, the bones.
Yeah.
But a skeleton is just bare bone. If verbs are the structure, then adjectives are the flesh.
They are. They are what give the argument its life, its tone, and its highly specific color.
So we are moving from the actions of an argument to the qualities of the subjects we are arguing about.
Yes. And the sources provide a phenomenal list of advanced adjectives.
I have them right here. Nuanced, pervasive, insidious, ambivalent, poignant, fraught, corrosive, and elegiac.
It's a heavy list.
It is. I want to start by throwing two of these into the ring together. Pervasive and insidious.
Good bearing.
Because visually in my head, they do the exact same thing. Like, if I describe a problem as pervasive, I mean it has spread everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
If I say a problem is insidious, I also mean it's creeping into every corner. If something is insidious, isn't it naturally pervasive? Why did English evolve two different words for something spreading?
They evolved because spreading has different moral and physical trajectories. Let's look at the actual mechanism of the words.
Okay.
You are right that they both involve reach, but pervasive is fundamentally morally neutral.
Morally neutral.
Yes. It simply means present and apparent throughout every part of a system.
So gravity is pervasive.
Exactly. Gravity's pervasive. You can have a pervasive smell of fresh bread in a bakery.
Okay.
You can talk about the pervasive influence of smartphones in modern society.
Right.
The word does not judge whether the spreading is good or bad. It only measures the volume. It is everywhere.
Okay, bread and smartphones are everywhere. Got it.
Mm.
But insidious. I mean, that sounds like a villain in a horror movie.
And it absolutely should. Insidious is never neutral. Never. The Latin root, insidiosus, literally means deceitful or ambush.
Ambush. Wow.
It carries a dark, stealthy, and inherently harmful connotation. An insidious threat isn't just spreading, it is actively hiding while it does massive structural damage.
Give me a real-world collision of these two words. How do I use them differently in a meeting?
Let's look at technology design.
Sure.
The use of push notifications on your phone is pervasive. Every app has them, they are everywhere, they constantly buzz.
Right, they're annoying, but they're obvious.
Exactly. But an algorithm designed by a social media company that subtly prioritizes content that makes you angry because their internal data shows that angry users stay on the app 5 minutes longer.
Oh.
That is insidious.
Wow, because I don't realize I'm being manipulated. The harm is hiding.
Exactly. The harm is stealthy. An insidious disease, like certain types of cancer, is one that grows quietly and does catastrophic damage long before you ever feel a single symptom.
That's terrifying.
Or an insidious rumor in an office. It doesn't blow up in a loud argument. It destroys a colleague's reputation quietly from the inside out over 6 months.
So if you are writing a report on a competitor's market strategy, calling it pervasive just means they're everywhere.
Right.
But calling it insidious means they're quietly setting a trap that will destroy your supply chain next year. The choice of adjective completely changes the threat level.
The stealthy harm. The choice completely rewrites the reality of the situation.
A stealthy harm. I love that distinction. Let's move to the next grouping.
Okay, let's do it.
The sources suggest organizing these adjectives by their functional terrain, which honestly makes total sense for that repeated retrieval pillar we talked about.
Grouping helps the brain store them, yes.
The next group deals with emotional complexity,
Mm-hmm.
and it includes ambivalent, poignant, and elegiac.
Let's start with ambivalent because from a C2 perspective, it is one of the most chronically misused words in the corporate world.
Oh, I hear it used strangely all the time.
Yeah.
People will say it to mean, like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Someone asks, where do you want to go for lunch? And the response is, I'm ambivalent.
And it drives linguists absolutely crazy.
Why?
Because they are confusing ambivalence with apathy or indifference.
Wow.
Apathy means you have no feelings, you are flatlining emotionally. Ambivalent is the exact opposite of having no feelings.
Wait, really? Look at the prefix. Ambi, like ambidextrous, using both hands.
Exactly. Ambi means both, and valent relates to value or strength.
Both strengths.
If you are ambivalent, you have strong, powerful, and completely contradictory feelings pulling you in two opposite directions simultaneously.
Wow. So I am not numb. I am being torn apart.
Precisely. You are deeply conflicted. If you are offered a massive promotion that comes with a huge salary increase, but it requires you to move across the country away from your aging parents,
Yeah, that's a tough spot.
you are not apathetic about the promotion. You are intensely ambivalent.
Right. I desperately want the financial security, and I desperately dread the guilt of leaving.
Exactly. Using ambivalent correctly in a negotiation signals that you understand the complex, competing desires at play.
Like saying, our team is ambivalent about the merger. We love the capital injection, but we fear the loss of creative control.
Yes. That is a highly precise C2 level assessment. You aren't saying the team doesn't care. You're saying the team is torn.
That makes so much sense. It's the pain of wanting two incompatible things.
Now, what about poignant and elegiac?
Yeah, they both live in the emotional realm of sadness, right?
They do, but with entirely different mechanisms of grief.
Okay, break them down.
Poignant comes from the same root as puncture or point. It means sharply touching, piercing the heart.
Tincturing. Okay.
It is an acute, sudden emotional spike. It usually evokes a keen sense of sadness or regret, but it is often mixed with a sharp realization of beauty.
Oh, like seeing an old photograph.
Yes, exactly. Seeing a photograph of your grandparents laughing when they were 20 years old is poignant.
It punctures you.
It does. It is sharp, immediate, and overwhelmingly human.
And how is elegiac different? Because it sounds so poetic.
It is highly poetic. It comes from elegy, which is literally a poem written for the dead.
Oh, wow.
But in advanced English, we don't just use it for funerals. An elegiac tone is specifically mournful about the passage of time.
The passage of time.
It is the deep, resonant reflection on something beautiful that is lost and can never, ever return.
But why do we need that specific word in a professional or academic context? Why not just say sad?
Because sad is a blunt instrument.
Okay.
Let's say you are a journalist and you are writing an article about the decline of the American shopping mall.
Right, the abandoned malls.
If you say the empty mall is sad, it just sounds pathetic, like a rainy Tuesday.
Yeah, it doesn't really capture the scale of it.
But if you write that walking through the abandoned food court was an elegiac experience, you are communicating a profound cultural mourning.
Oh, wow.
You are saying, this was once a vibrant hub of teenage life and commerce, and its era is definitively over. Elegiac is that specific sunset feeling.
That sunset feeling.
It elevates the observation from a simple emotion to a historical reflection.
That sunset feeling. I mean, that is going to stick with me. I love that.
It's powerful.
Okay, so the next category the sources outline is destructive or tense states. And this features the adjectives fraught and corrosive.
Ah, yes. And this is the perfect moment to revisit our second pillar.
Collocation, the chemical bonds of words.
Right, because I hear fraught used strangely all the time. People will say things like, oh, I'm feeling so fraught today.
Which is wrong.
Which is structurally incorrect based on its collocations.
Why?
Fraught originally comes from the concept of freight, like a ship loaded with cargo.
Okay, cargo.
Over time, it evolved to mean laden with or filled with something invisible, usually tension, anxiety, or extreme risk.
It's the feeling of walking a tightrope over a canyon.
Yes. But the critical rule, the chemical bond, is that a situation is fraught. A person is not fraught.
Oh, so I can't be fraught.
No. You are anxious. The negotiation is fraught. The silence in the room is fraught.
Ah, the vessel is fraught.
Exactly. And notice the preposition it bonds with. We say a situation is fraught with danger or fraught with historical baggage.
We do not say it is fraught of danger.
Exactly. Understanding that chemical bond is the difference between sounding like a native C2 speaker and a learner translating from a textbook.
Okay, and what about corrosive? I assume this is about, like, acid-eating metal.
Literally, yes. But metaphorically, which is how we use it at the advanced level, it describes a very specific timeline of destruction.
A timeline.
When something is corrosive, it is not an explosion. An explosion destroys a building in 1 second.
Right.
Corrosive is the slow, invisible, relentless eating away of a foundation over years.
Give me a corporate example of that.
Gossip.
Oh.
Gossip doesn't blow up a company overnight. But a culture of unchecked gossip is deeply corrosive to team trust.
It slowly rusts the team apart.
Exactly. Over 3 years, it eats through the structural integrity of the department until the whole thing just collapses.
So if you are diagnosing a systemic problem in an organization, calling it damaging is just vague.
Very vague.
But calling it corrosive paints this terrifyingly precise picture of structural decay.
It does. Which brings us to the final adjective in the list, which the sources place in a category of its own.
They call it intellectual depth.
Yes. And the word is nuanced.
Nuance.
If you take only one adjective from this entire deep dive, let it be nuanced. It is the ultimate marker of an educated critical mind.
It essentially means the opposite of black and white, right?
Yes. It means characterized by subtle, almost microscopic shades of meaning, expression, or sound.
Right.
The human brain, especially in our current media environment, loves binary thinking.
Oh, absolutely. Good or evil, success or failure, left or right.
It is cognitively easy to think in binaries. You don't have to burn calories.
But reality is almost never binary.
Exactly. When you describe an argument, a policy, or a piece of art as nuanced, you are praising it for acknowledging the immense, messy complexity of reality.
Give me an example of a nuanced policy.
A nuanced approach to climate change legislation recognizes that you have to protect the environment while simultaneously ensuring that coal miners don't instantly lose their ability to feed their families.
Right. It's the micro adjustments on a dial rather than just an on-off switch.
Exactly. Using the word nuance is almost a signal to the room that you are refusing to simplify a complex problem. You are demanding intellectual rigor.
It forces everyone to slow down and look at the shadows, not just the bright lights.
Beautifully put, yes.
Okay, so let's look at where we are. We have the precise verbs to build the action and the posture of our argument.
We have the skeleton.
Right. And we have these incredibly exact, slightly logically heavy adjectives to shade the meaning and dictate the emotional threat level.
We have the flesh.
But if I just throw a pile of verbs and adjectives onto a table, I just have a word salad.
A very precise word salad, but yes.
I need a container. I need to know how to structure the text itself.
Which is exactly where the sources transition us next.
Yeah.
We are moving from the bricks and the paint to the actual architecture of thought.
The structural and literary frameworks.
Yes, the concepts we use to build the house.
And the sources provide a list. Motif, irony, foreshadowing, moral ambiguity, framework, premise, implication, tension, and trajectory.
It's a fantastic list.
Now, looking at this list, half of these sound like they belong in a corporate boardroom, and half of them sound like they belong in a college literature class.
They do crossover, yes.
Let's start with the business side. I want to try an analogy to clarify framework versus premise, because people use them interchangeably all the time.
Let's hear it.
Let's say we are building a house of ideas. Is the premise the concrete foundation, like the core unspoken assumption that everything else rests upon?
Okay, I'm following.
And the framework is the wooden beams, the methodology that gives the house its shape and organizes where the rooms go.
That is a flawless mechanistic analogy. That's exactly right.
Awesome.
Let's look at how that actually functions in an argument. Let's say a politician proposes a new economic policy. The framework of the policy might be highly detailed. It outlines exactly how taxes will be collected, how funds will be distributed, the exact timelines. The framework looks incredibly solid.
The wooden beams are perfectly straight. Everything is plumb.
Exactly. But what if the premise, the concrete foundation, is the assumption that consumers will always act entirely rationally?
Well, human beings are incredibly irrational. Everyone knows that.
Right. So the premise is flawed. The concrete is cracked. It doesn't matter how beautiful the wooden framework is. The moment the house faces the real-world weather of human irrationality, the whole thing collapses.
That is such a powerful tool for a debate.
Yeah.
If you are critiquing a proposal, attacking the framework is just arguing over details.
Yes, you're arguing about wallpaper.
But attacking the premise is destroying the foundation.
Exactly. And to expand on your house analogy, how does implication fit in?
Oh yeah, where does implication go?
The implication is what happens once the house is built and lived in. It is the unstated logical consequence of the structure. What does building this massive house mean for the drainage of the entire neighborhood?
Oh, the ripple effect.
Yes. If we implement this new AI technology, which has a solid premise and a great framework, what is the implication for our entry-level workers? Will they be obsolete in 2 years?
So the implication is the shadow the house casts on the future.
I love that. Yes, the lived experience of the idea over time, which leads perfectly to trajectory.
Trajectory, like a rocket.
Yes. Trajectory is simply the path an argument, a historical event, or a market trend is taking through the air.
You look at where it started, the velocity it currently has, and you predict exactly where it will land.
Right. The trajectory of our current spending guarantees bankruptcy by Q3. It's predicting the landing spot based on the current math.
Okay, so those are the academic architectural tools. But then we have this second bucket, the literary analysis tools.
Motif, irony, foreshadowing, moral ambiguity, and tension.
Yeah. I can vividly imagine a listener asking right now, I am a supply chain manager.
Yeah.
Why on earth do I need to know about literary motifs or irony for a logistics meeting?
It is a deeply pragmatic question,
Right.
and the answer lies in how human neurobiology works. Human beings are not logic processing machines. We are story processing machines.
We love a narrative.
We understand the chaos of the world by forcing it into a narrative structure. Even in a logistics meeting, you are not just presenting numbers on a spreadsheet, you are telling a story about reality.
That's a great point.
If you master literary tools, you master the matrix of human perception.
Okay, so show me how a supply chain manager uses motif. In literature, a motif is a recurring element, right?
Yeah.
Like the color green in The Great Gatsby.
Exactly.
How does that apply to logistics?
In business, a motif is a recurring pattern of behavior or failure that reveals a deeper systemic theme. Let's say you are looking at 5 years of supply chain data. If you point out that every time the company attempts to expand into Asia, there is a sudden catastrophic breakdown in communication with local vendors, you have identified a motif.
Wow.
You aren't just looking at isolated data points anymore. You are showing the board the recurring thematic failure in their corporate DNA.
You become the smartest person in the room because you see the narrative pattern that everyone else completely missed. You are seeing the code behind the events.
Precisely. Now, what about irony?
Irony is a tricky one.
It is the stark, often painful contrast between expectation and reality. It is when an action produces the exact opposite of its intended result.
Give me a corporate irony.
Let's say corporate HR implements a mandatory, extremely rigorous employee wellness tracking system to reduce stress.
Okay.
But the tracking system is so complicated that it causes massive anxiety, and everyone's stress levels absolutely skyrocket.
Right. That is incredibly ironic.
Exactly. If you stand up in a meeting and say, the irony of our wellness initiative is that it has become our primary driver of burnout, you immediately capture the entire room's attention.
Because it highlights the absurdity.
Yes. Irony cuts through corporate speak like a razor because it highlights that absurdity. Yeah. It is a highly sophisticated way of pointing out a failure without just whining or complaining.
And moral ambiguity. That sounds incredibly heavy for a standard Tuesday meeting.
Because it is heavy. Moral ambiguity is the recognition that there is no clear right or wrong answer, only competing ethical compromises.
Competing compromises.
Yeah. If a tech company discovers that their new safety algorithm requires scraping user data without explicit consent to function perfectly, they are facing moral ambiguity.
Do they prioritize absolute physical safety or absolute data privacy?
Right. Using the term moral ambiguity elevates the conversation from a basic logistics problem to a profound ethical crossroad.
It requires the room to be nuanced.
Precisely. It demands that the room stops looking for a simple binary solution and accepts the tension of the reality.
Okay, we are in the home stretch of this deep dive.
Let's bring it home.
We have overhauled our philosophy. We have forged our precise verbs. We have colored the world with our adjectives. And we have built the structural architecture of our arguments using these literary tools.
It's quite a toolkit.
It is. The final step to true C2 mastery is connective tissue.
Yes, the connective expressions.
The sources transition us to advanced expressions and idioms, throw into relief the crux of the matter, give rise to, pave the way, and a far cry from.
This is where we learn how words link together to create a fluid, sophisticated rhythm.
But let me push back here, because this feels like a contradiction of our entire mission today.
Oh, how so?
We have spent an hour talking about extreme precision, using the scalpel instead of the flashy pink tuxedo. Why are we ending with idioms?
Okay.
Doesn't using an idiom actively undermine academic precision? If I want to say that one thing caused another, shouldn't I just use the precise literal word cause instead of a poetic idiom like give rise to?
That is a very logical, very common concern for advanced learners.
Do these expressions make us sound less like rigorous professionals and more like we're just chatting at a pub?
It fundamentally misinterprets how the English language evolved to communicate complex ideas. English is inherently a language of rhythm, stress, and visual metaphor.
Right.
These specific C2 expressions do not dilute precision. They actively enhance it by providing cognitive roadmaps for the listener's brain.
How does a metaphor enhance precision? Isn't literal language always more precise?
Not when dealing with abstract concepts. Human brains evolved to navigate physical space. We understand physical objects, distance, and light far better than we understand abstract logic.
Oh, that makes sense?
Idioms map abstract ideas onto physical reality so the brain can process them instantly.
Okay, demonstrate that for me. Let's look at the crux of the matter.
Let's trace the etymology. The word crux is Latin for cross.
Cross.
It represents an intersection, a crossing point, the absolute central pivot upon which an entire structure balances. If you are in a 2-hour meeting that has drifted into a dozen different tangents, and you say, we have discussed the budget and the marketing, but the crux of the matter is our timeline, you are doing something highly specific to the psychology of the room.
I am telling them what is important.
You are doing more than that. You are instantly directing their cognitive focus.
Oh.
You are visually signaling, stop looking at the edges of the map, bring your eyes right back to the center cross, because if this pivot breaks, everything else falls apart.
Wow.
It is a spotlight. The word important is flat. The crux is structural geometry.
It is amazing. What about throw into relief? That sounds incredibly artistic. I hear historians and art critics use that.
Because it comes directly from sculpture and art history.
Oh, literally?
Literally. A relief is a style of sculpture where the figures remain attached to a solid, flat background. Think of the faces on a coin or ancient Roman wall carvings.
Right, the figures are raised up from the flat stone.
Yes. Now, if you look at a white marble relief sculpture under flat, even ceiling lighting, it's very hard to see the details. The edges blur.
Yeah, it all washes out.
But if you take a flashlight and shine it sharply from the side, if you throw the light, the raised edges cast deep shadows. You throw it into relief. You make the contrast sharp, undeniable, and impossible to ignore.
That is a brilliant visual. How does that translate to an argument?
We use it metaphorically to describe the psychology of contrast. The human brain literally cannot perceive a concept without its opposite.
We don't notice light unless there is shadow.
Exactly. So if you say the massive logistical failures of the hurricane response threw the government's underfunding into sharp relief, you are creating a visceral image.
You're saying the underfunding was always there, like the flat sculpture. We just couldn't see it until the crisis provided this sharp side lighting.
Exactly. It implies pre-existing conditions made visible by extreme contrast. That is a vastly more powerful, precise, and resonant way to communicate than just saying, the hurricane showed us that the government was underfunded.
And regarding my earlier question about cause versus give rise to or pave the way, why use the metaphor there?
Because cause is a sterile, blunt instrument. It explains nothing about the nature of the causation.
Right.
Let's look at give rise to. This metaphor is agricultural. It implies an organic, almost inevitable growth from a specific set of environmental conditions.
Okay, give me an example.
If you say, the oppressive new tax laws gave rise to a black market, you are suggesting that the black market grew naturally out of the toxic soil of those laws. It wasn't a mechanical flip of a switch, it was an organic consequence.
And pave the way?
That is a metaphor of intentional civil engineering. It implies smoothing a difficult road so that something much larger can follow behind it easily.
Like a steamroller.
Yes. Her groundbreaking, controversial research paved the way for modern genetic editing. You would never say her research caused genetic editing. That's absurd. She built the intellectual highway that the later scientists drove their cars on. The metaphor provides the exact historical mechanism of how the progress actually happened.
It really is precision engineering. And the last expression, a far cry from.
It is a metaphor of spatial and auditory distance. Before telecommunications, if you were a far cry away from someone, you were so physically distant that even if you screamed at the top of your lungs, they couldn't hear you.
Oh, wow. A literal cry.
Yes. Today, we use it to emphasize a massive, deeply disappointing conceptual distance between two things.
So the prototype they delivered is a far cry from the sleek design they promised investors.
Yes. It doesn't just mean they are different.
Yeah.
It means the gap between them is painfully, embarrassingly vast.
If we connect these expressions back to the very first section of our deep dive, the pillar of collocation, these idioms are the ultimate unbreakable chemical bonds.
They really are.
You cannot separate far from cry in this context without losing the absolute magic of the metaphor.
They are the ultimate proof that mastering C2 English is about mastering the combinations, the chemistry, and the rhythm of the language, not just isolated definitions.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's synthesize this incredible journey we've been on.
Let's wrap it up.
We started by completely rewiring our underlying philosophy. We stripped off the oversized, flashy pink tuxedo of vocabulary as decoration.
We threw away the monocle.
We did. We realized that showing off ruins credibility, and we picked up the scalpel of precision.
We learned that true mastery is supported by 4 pillars: understanding the context, mapping the chemical bonds of collocation, tuning our suspension system to the correct register, and embracing the neurological friction of repeated retrieval.
The struggle.
The struggle builds the highway.
We examined the precise, combative postures of academic verbs. We learned that we do not assert our opinions. We demonstrate our proof.
Yes.
We learned to strike with contend and defend with maintain. And we explored the cognitive inception of the verb imply, the shadow work.
We shaded the world with nuanced adjectives, separating the merely pervasive reality from the stealthy, insidious threats.
We acknowledged the agonizing dual desires of ambivalence.
And we learned to mourn the sunset of an era with the elegiac.
We became architects. We separated the concrete premise from the wooden framework and we mapped the implications and trajectories of our ideas.
We took literary tools like motif, irony, and moral ambiguity and weaponized them for the boardroom, recognizing that human beings process data through narrative.
And finally, we linked it all together. We used advanced expressions to map abstract concepts onto physical reality, throwing our arguments into sharp relief and directing the listener to the absolute crux of the matter.
It's an entirely new way to speak.
To you, the listener, the reason we took this deep dive, the reason this matters to your life and your career, is because mastering these precise tools is your ultimate lever.
It really is.
It is how you project undeniable authority. It is how you ensure that your ideas are not just heard, but are felt and respected in the most demanding, high-stakes environments in the world.
But as we close this analysis, I want to leave you with a philosophical tension to mull over as you go about your week.
A final thought.
We have spent this entire time striving for absolute, razor-sharp linguistic precision. But language does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in the beautifully messy, constantly evolving, deeply flawed reality of human interaction.
The collision of perfect theory and messy reality.
Exactly. So you must ask yourself, what happens when your drive for perfect precision outpaces your audience's comprehension?
Oh, that's a dangerous line.
It is. If you choose the perfectly precise word, let's say you describe a corporate restructuring as insidious or a market trend as elegiac, but the senior leadership in that specific room does not understand the exact register or the subtle chemical bonds of those words, what happens?
Do they just miss it?
Does the word lose its power? Does your precision accidentally create a barrier of alienation?
You become the Formula One car on the dirt road.
Exactly. Or does your confident, precise use of that word, supported by the strong context you build around it, act as a gravitational pull?
Ooh, pulling them up.
Do you elevate the entire room, pulling your audience up to that C2 level with you?
That is the ultimate test.
Navigating that delicate, thrilling balance between uncompromising precision and absolute clarity, that is the true tension you will have to master on your own trajectory forward.
The scalpel is only a miracle tool if the patient understands the surgery. What a profound, brilliant place to leave it.
Oh.
Thank you for joining us on this incredibly deep dive. We will see you next time.